the ego traits. So friends, the ego always survives on identification and separation. Who I am is separate from everything else. So like complaining. So when you're complaining, you are like name calling or shouting or screaming, even physical violence. That is one part of the ego. Second form of the ego is resentment. With people or situations, you make others unconscious state your own identity. So if somebody is behaving bad with you, you identify with that behavior. You identify with that person who is behaving bad with you. And the moment you identify with that, now you feel that resentment. So it is your identification with that person's ego, with that personality self, that not only do you identify with your personality, sometimes you even identify with the other's personality self. And then gives birth to resentment. So in fact, friends, non-reaction is a way to dissolve ego. When you are not reacting, the other person also eventually will be able to understand this sooner or later, and then he will be able to also dissolve his ego. So non-reaction is the way. The one great way taught by Buddha is non-reaction. Non-reaction is a way to dissolve ego. When somebody is in a state of ego and you don't react, subconsciously you are actually dissolving that person's ego. Not only do you dissolve your ego, eventually the person will recognize that. The person will appreciate that. And that's how we dissolve the collective human ego. So Buddha said, pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional. We will face life challenges, but to suffer or not is our choice. When we identify with other person's pain or suffering or the other person's words or his body language, then it becomes our suffering. So nobody dies. So one example is also nobody dies with the snake bite. Everybody dies with the poison. So your identification is the poison. If you're not identifying, the poison does not come to you. The poison stays with that person. Now it becomes the part of that person's reality and not you. In fact, Wayne Dyer said there are no justified resentments. So what you resist, persist. In fact, what irritates you about others only reflect that part of the ego that is still active in your vibration. Your resistance always hardens the shell of the ego, and the acceptance softens the ego. Another technique which is taught by Buddha to deal with the ego is to embrace silence. Silence is the speech of a spiritual seeker. It is the silence between the notes that make the music. Friends, we came as a creator, not as a reactor. So let's take our responsibility of our behavior. Responsibility means your ability to respond, not react. And nobody can make you unhappy without your consent. So to take the power back to you. So the observer affects what is being observed. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. So friends, there is no problem with the ego. The only problem with the ego is unaware. It's not that the ego is bad. Sometimes we need the ego for our survival, and that's how we survived all through from the childhood to now. But the problem with the ego is unaware. But every time it is recognized, it is weakened. So Buddha said, seeing is freeing. If you are able to see it, you are able to free it. The more you recognize, the more conscious you become of that unconscious ego patterns. The more you lower your volume, and the more it will lose its intensity. The more it will start trying to dominate your life, and slowly you'll become free of that ego. So the third ego trait is grievance. So if the resentment which is carried for a long time becomes a grievance, the resentment which started as a mood turned into a temperament, carried further for months turned into a personality self, your state of being, and now it's a grievance. Now the long hold grievance you're carrying for years. And so because with that, the resentment which increased the refractory period turned into a grievance now. Sometimes, friends, the collective grievance can even survive for centuries in the psyche of a nation, of a tribe, of a community or a religion. And it could lead to even cycles of endless violence. As Indian, as a childhood, we are made to believe that Pakistan is an enemy. So any time the topic of Pakistan comes, we feel resistance. We in our psyche, we hold a grievance against that country. Or for a Jews, because of the World War II, they have some resentment against the Germans. They're not able to forgive the Germans. So the collective grievance can even carry in the psyche of the whole nation, and we don't even realize it. And that is again a part of the ego, because you identified with that with the belief system of your family or of the nation. Now that you are holding that collective ego. So friends, you are the grievance looking for a cause. When people, places, situations, things, time and event will change. But if there's a grievance in your personality, then you'll keep looking for a cause to experience that grievance. So we need to break that chain of pain. So now the fourth ego trait is of being right. Because when you make others wrong, you feel you are bigger. By making them smaller, you are feeling you are bigger. So it's a perspective. All situations are fundamentally neutral. By judging it by right or wrong, you buy that experience, because with that judgment you draw that energy, you focus your energy into that, and with that you buy that experience. Friends, energy is the currency of the universe. With your attention, you buy that experience. So it's a perspective, it's an opinion, it's a judgment, it's a story. So by making others wrong and making yourself right, you give yourself that sense of superiority. So friends, focus your attention on what you love about that person. Always catch them doing right, because what you appreciate appreciates. Carlos Castaneda said, give up your personal history. And so that's why when you see your wife or your mother-in-law, you don't see, you've already, the moment before even they started open their mouth, you already judge them. You don't see your wife, you see the image of her, what you have created in your mind from the experience of last 30 years. All our emotions are nothing but a record of our past, and we are only seeing from the lens of that past. And that becomes the very basis of our relationship then. Relationship is about how you relate to yourself, not to others. First is how you relate to yourself. So friends, there are 3 stages of egoic relationships. The first stage is wanting. Ego always wants from outside. Ego always keeps wanting in a relationship. Ego always wants from others, because it is not getting from this source, because it is separated from its source energy. It is wanting from others. The second way the ego wants is through a thwarted wanting, through a threat, through anger or resentment or blame or complaining. But deep down it is still wanting. From the outside it just looks like complaining or resentment, but actually it is trying to want something from the relationship. And the third stage of egoic relationship is resentment, when the opposite of love is not hate but indifference. So you behave indifferent to that person, you just ignore that person as if that person doesn't exist. Abandonment is pessimism in action. But if it's a genuine relationship, then you will give alert attention with no wanting whatsoever. So friends, it's better to be interested rather than interesting. Most of our time in a relationship, we spend time trying to be interesting, but rather be interested in what that person needs, what that person is trying to say, what that person is trying to tell you. So all projections, expectations, rejections, separations and judgments we have of that other person and of ourselves to that other person, we need to drop it totally and completely. Only then we can be free from that ego. Only then we can have a very genuine relationship. I leave you to be free, to be yourself, to think your own thoughts, to indulge your own tastes, to follow your own inclination and behave in the ways you decide to your liking. So the Rumi said, yesterday I was clever, I wanted to change the world, but today I am wise, so I want to change myself. So friends, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. That's what Venn Dyer said. The observer affects what is being observed. Your subjective mind has an impact on that objective reality. So religion can be such a great tool for you to evolve. But most of the time we use religion for separation. Oh, my religion is superior than your religion. In fact, we even wage war in the name of religion. We do so many killings in the name of religion. We have jihadis in the name of religion. In the history, so many wars have been waged in the name of religion. So because of ego, you think that your God is superior. Your God is better than others' God. And what are you doing that? By doing that, you are actually separating yourself, from your own source. And you started believing that God is outside of you. But the truth is that God is within us. You are gods, we are all gods, we are all co-creators. So friends, the sixth trait of the ego is collective ego. And this trait is far more dangerous, far more lethal than your personal ego. Because you are absolutely unconscious, unaware of this ego. And not only that you are unconscious or unaware, you think it is a virtue to have that ego. So like your notion of a nation or a notion of a religion is so strong that you are ready to kill somebody else for the sake of to defend your own ego, to defend your own religion, to defend your own nation. You are ready to kill thousands of people in the name of the nation or in the name of a religion. And not only do we kill others, we take pride in that. If there's a war between India and Pakistan, if there's a border firing between India and Pakistan, in the news, if I come to know that 20 people died from my countryside, but if 50 people died from their countryside, we feel pride, we feel good, wow, our soldiers were so great. But isn't it all man-made? It is the man who made the religions, who made the nations. But we identify so strongly with that collective ego, that we started believing it. When the God created the planet, there were no nations, there were no religion. When the man descended on earth, and then we started creating nations, we started creating this religion. And it could be with a nation, it could be with a religion, it could be the team of your state or your nation, it could be with a soccer team. Collectively we identify so much that we are ready to fight, we are ready to give our life for that. The seventh trait of the ego is war, friends. The war is a mindset. War is completely a mindset. Whatever you fight, you strengthen. If you fight for your limitations, you will keep it. So a lot of times we see as a collectively we wage a war against poverty, war against drugs, war against crime, war against terrorism, war against cancer, and so on and so forth. But none of this war against have ever served its purpose. We have only strengthened it. Whatever you focus on, it expands. By focusing on what you do not want, you are actually giving more energy, more attention to what you do not want. But by focus, you are actually expanding it. Not only in your consciousness, but in a collective consciousness of the human psyche. You are expanding that consciousness through your collective focus. So somebody asked Mother Teresa once during the Vietnam War that would you join the rally for a rally against war, for the fight against war? She said, absolutely not. However, if it is a rally for peace, I'll be the first one to march. So Einstein said you cannot solve the problem from the same level of mind that created it. If you can only fight violence with non-violence. And Gandhiji is a great example. That's how India got independence, just through non-violence. Can you believe a nation which was so much tortured and which was so oppressed got freedom just by non-violence? So the eighth trait of the ego is drama. Ego always loves drama. It wants to create drama where there's nothing existed but peace. It will justify, attack, blame, defend. It will do all things to create that drama. So you rather be at peace. You rather be at peace than being right. But the ego wants to be always right, rather be at peaceful. So friends, practice acceptance and allowance. If you honor the present happening, it loses its absolute seriousness, its heaviness. So the ninth trait of the ego is wanting. Wanting always keeps the ego alive. Because when you are wanting, you're drawing more energy from something outside, some outside gratification. And that charges the ego. That's the only way the ego can stay alive. So that's why you always keep wanting things. So suppose you're at home, then you want to go to office. When you're in office, you want to go on a holiday. When you're enjoying your holiday, then you are working. So you're always never in the present moment. If you're with your wife, you are thinking of your girlfriend. When you are with a girlfriend, now you want to settle down. You want to marry and have a sustained relationship. So today, if you have something, we are not happy. Never enjoying the present moment. The ego always separates us by prompting what we want, by prompting us to want something more, something different from now. So the 10th trait of the ego is fear. So friends, we are always governed by fear. The underlying activity that governs all ego is fear. Fear of nobody, fear of death, fear of non-existence, fear of money. When you were not rich, you wanted to have a lot of wealth. When you got the wealth, then you have a fear of losing that wealth. When you were not in any relationship, you wanted to have a great relationship. When you got into the great relationship, now you have a fear of losing that relationship. When you are alive, you have a fear of dying. So because that fear always keeps the ego alive. So the 11th trait of the ego is, friends, fame. So ego always seeks fulfillment from outside, and as a result, we become more and more alienated from your own self, and then in turn become more and more unhappy. So, for example, film stars, politicians, religious leaders, influential people, they'll always actually do the name dropping. Oh, I know this person, I am this person. They form the whole cult. You want to be known as an influential person, or drop names so that people know that, oh, you are somebody. So that is one common trait of the ego. But the truth is, friends, the same film stars are not going to be film stars or had the same popularity all through their life. The same politician may not remain a president for all his life. And when the post goes away, they feel they go into a state of complete depression. They become suicidal. Because by believing that is permanent, that fame will be permanent, they actually alienated from their own self. And now that has become a cause of misery. Now the 12th ego trait is, friends, ego always resists present moment. The present moment is the biggest enemy of ego. The only thing that ego do not want is the present moment. But the only way you can experience your present life is through present moment. Our life is nothing but slices of present moment. But the biggest enemy of ego is the present moment. And through that ego, that is how you develop your relationship with time. You never enjoy the present moment. You always postpone your happiness for tomorrow. If tomorrow that happens, then I'll be happy. If after 5 days that happens, then I'll be happy. But when the 5 days comes, you only experience that in the present moment. And now the ego wants me to make you believe that no, now if something else happens, then you'll be happy. So you again postpone it for another 10 days, and then another 1 month, and again 1 year, or 5 years, or 10 years. And that's how you keep postponing your happiness. But the truth is, friends, you always, when that 5 year come, when 10 year come, you'll only experience in a form of present moment. And that is how it has become a relationship with time. You only want to postpone it for tomorrow. And that's why you're never in the present moment. Only when you embrace the present moment, you feel the sense of fulfillment, contentment, satisfaction, that inner joy. Then you are able to give to others rather than seeking or rather than wanting. So the 13th trait of the ego is, ego always feels alone. Ego is always lonely. So there's a quote, solitude is a pleasure of being alone, and loneliness is a pain of being alone. So ego always feels the pain of being alone, because that I is actually reducing you. So that's why you always need distraction of people, places, things, time and event to distract you from that loneliness. So the 14th trait of the ego is, ego always seeks approval. You always do things for the approval of others. It seeks constant attention and validification. If I do this, then my wife will be happy. If I do this, my parents will be happy. So you always do things to prove others. And even sometimes, even through your work or through service, you're always trying to do things to prove to the society, to the world, that yes, I am somebody, I've done something. And there's constant validification. That's how you seek your gratification. Now the 15th trait of the ego is, ego always like to steal energy. You always want to steal energy from others. Like a perpetrator or a victim. Like what does a perpetrator do? It always like all of a sudden it will shout on his family members or on his friends. So by doing that, the other person gets scared or gets fearful. But energetically, he's stealing the energy from the other person. The other person feels victimized. Now the victim also wants to draw energy from somebody else. Now the victim, he'll seek sympathy from others. Oh, always other people treat me like this. I am so unhappy. The other person will sympathize. Now with sympathy, he has drawn energy. So this is the game. We keep playing this game of stealing energy from giving energy to another and then stealing from somebody else, giving energy from another and stealing from somebody else. Because the truth is, we are not connected to our own source of energy. Our source is our best resource, but because we have lost that connection from our own source, we always want to steal energy from others to keep our ego alive. And the more you feed others' ego, the more addictive it becomes. Like initially, if you want 2 cigarettes, so suppose you are addicted to 2 cigarettes. But if you have more and more cigarettes, now you will become addicted to 5 cigarettes, 10 cigarettes, and the more you want it. The same way with your ego. The more you feed others' ego or your ego, the more addictive it becomes. The more you enhance its cravings. Another last and the 16th trait of the ego is it's unconscious. Friends, the ego isn't wrong. There's no problem with the ego. It's just that it is unconscious. It is unaware. So awareness is the key. When you observe it in you, you'll be able to go beyond. The more you become aware of your ego, the more it will lose its intensity. The more conscious you become of your ego, the less unconscious you will go during the course of the day. The lower it will be volume to actually dominate in your life. Eckhart Tolle said, if you take your ego to be a personal problem, then it's just another ego. So friends, don't take your ego too seriously. Smile and even laugh at ego. Even if the moment you become aware, just laugh at it. And the more you become observant, the more with more and more practice, the more you'll slowly become free of that ego.